Hey guys, welcome back. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the weirdest species in the entire Halo universe. A species whose history, I think, will take a lot of people by surprise because it's just something that you'd never even imagine unless you read the books, because it's so out there and the games never even touch on it. This species are the Engineers. So, the Engineers are simply just another organic Covenant species, right? They're just as alien as the rest of the Covenant, so there's no real reason to believe that they're anything special. Well, that would be a very incorrect assumption, my friend. The Engineers, or as they were known to the Covenant, the Huragok, are actually an incredibly ancient race. In fact, I don't even know if you could call them a race, per se. Their origin as a species was not natural nor organic in any way. They didn't come into creation through natural means, which in the case of the Halo universe means through the precursors. They are instead an entirely artificial species that were created by the Forerunners. They created the Engineers using nanocellular technology to serve as, essentially, glorified servants, fit for a plethora of different roles. Most were created by the Forerunner builders to maintain and repair installations over long periods of time, but other rarer forms were created by the life workers to fill medical roles. Remember those medical droids from Battlefront 2 and at the end of Return of the Sith? Well, the Engineers are kind of like the Halo universe's version of those, except they can fly, they're a lot more intelligent, and of course, they're a lot cuter. Because of their artificial origin, they don't have organs per se, but they instead have sort of nanocellular replacements that mimic the typical organs so closely that most will never be able to tell a difference. It's for this reason that most people have no idea that they aren't a natural creation. These organs were created purely with function in mind, and thus every element of the Engineer's body was made with a purpose. Not only does this make them hyper efficient at what they do, but it also grants them the unique ability to interact with data and sort of download it to themselves. More on this later. They can also read biological life signs and sense signals of a certain frequency emitted by installations in need of repair, and if absolutely necessary, they can also heal themselves and other Engineers in need of repair, so, you know, even the Engineers always look out for the homies. However, back in the days of the Forerunners, this kind of creeped a lot of people out. Many found the Engineers to be quite disgusting, and as such, despite their incredible usefulness, they were shunned by society, never given any form of identity, and not even allowed in public. However, don't worry, the Engineers got the last laugh. They survived long after their creators. So long, in fact, that nobody even knows what the lifespan of an Engineer is because they've survived for so long. No one's ever seen one die due to old age, so nobody has any idea how long they can go on for. The Forerunners did know that this was the case, however, and they entrusted these cute floaty boys with maintaining their empire, spread all throughout the galaxy after they were gone. As such, it's no surprise that when they were first found by the Covenant, they were found tending to their installations. An ancient order of the Prophets, known as the Reformists, found them on the M-Series Forerunner installations sometime before 938 BC, which technically was before the creation of the Covenant, so you can't really say that they were found by the Covenant, rather they were found by prophets that would later establish the Covenant. These prophets were rather unique, however. They differed from the rest of their population because, unlike the rest, they believed that they should begin to harness Forerunner artifacts to technologically advance their species, and the Engineers helped them achieve this goal. They were peacefully assimilated into their order and served them by helping them utilize Forerunner tech, along with repairing and maintaining their ships during and out of battle, and in 852 BC, when the Covenant was formed, they continued to do the same. Despite them not caring in the slightest about the fake Covenant religion, they were easily one of, if not the most important members of the entire Covenant, given that they were the only members who could actually interface with Forerunner tech, something that was only known by a few high-ranking officials. They were kept close to the Prophets at all times, choosing to not communicate with any other species in the Covenant, and were used by the Prophets to interact with Forerunner machinery on their behalf. It was only later on in the war when the UNSC would start to see them, when they were sent down to human worlds to search for Forerunner technology hidden beneath it. For example, the massive Forerunner structure hidden below the streets of New Mombasa. However, with the outbreak of the Great Schism, their peacefulness and lack of aggression would soon change. Against their own will, the Brutes, now much higher ranking in the Covenant and in total control of the Covenant military, began to strap bombs to the Engineers so they wouldn't fall into enemy hands. At first, the Engineers weren't too bothered about this because they thought the humans would use them to desecrate the foreign artifacts, but as we see in ODST, they soon caught wind of the real reason why the Brutes were doing this and started to resist, attempting to free themselves and their friends.
Hold the creature still! Place the charge before I lose my grip. It's armed and ready to explode if any human gets too close.
And this is where our old pal Virgil comes in. Virgil, or as he was known to the other Engineers, Quick to Adjust, was the only surviving member of a group of 6 other Engineers, who were all killed after they freed Quick from his explosives. Afterward, he made his way to the core of New Mombassa's AI, the Superintendent, and began doing what all Engineers do best, repairing it. During the repairs, he downloaded most of its data, including its subroutine, Virgil, and was captured, or more so, saved by the UNSC, and thus became known as Virgil the Friendly Engineer. And this leads nicely into the final part of the video. What happened to the Engineers after the war? Well, with their former masters almost all dead or gone, many just sort of disappeared. But not all of them. Some remained in possession of the elites, whereas many others worked in service of the Office of Naval Intelligence. Given their extreme intelligence and knowledge of all things foreigner, they are a vital asset to the UNSC. They're employed all over the galaxy, from the UNSC Infinity to Onyx and even on board the Shadow of Intent. They're a vital asset to the Allies in this sort of volatile, uncertain post-war time. So much so that suggestions have been made to ensure that every single UNSC ship, post-war, has at least one engineer on board, should they run into any unknown foreigner asset or require repairs beyond their means. However, some within ONI, notably its ex-commander-in-chief Admiral Parangoski, have aired their concerns with this. Given the Engineers' foreigner nature, like some AI, they may have sort of like hidden directives installed in them that forces them to serve a foreigner master above all else, and with the ever-looming threat of the Didact's return, this could be disastrous for reasons that I don't think I need to go into. But it's not all sunshine and daisies. Some Engineers are in the possession of the Banished, and their treatment by them is, quite frankly, horrific. Given the damage the Banished were causing to the Ark, the Engineers' internal systems were forcing them into repair mode, but the yokes they'd installed in their flesh were blocking them, putting the poor guys into a perpetual state of agony. And that isn't even all of it. Voridus, the Banished Lieutenant, had an obsession with infusion gel, which was used to create Covenant fuel rods. This obsession led him to modify some Engineers with it, changing them in really unnatural ways. Some completely fell apart, others abandoned their caretaking of foreigner tech and began damaging Banished equipment whose owners had annoyed them, and then, to make matters even worse, these damaged Engineers are shunned by the healthy ones. They're oppressed by even their own kin. But we can't end the video on a dark note, so there's one more thing that we need to address. Something more important than anything that I've covered so far in this video. What happened to our boy Virgil after the war? Well, you'll be happy to know that he's all safe and sound. After ODST, he worked with ONI on various missions and garnered a special attachment to the daughter of the man who created the subroutine Virgil, who he was now named after, Sadie Endesha. Now, for those who collected all of the ODST audio logs, you might recognize this girl. She's the same Sadie from Sadie's Stories, quite obviously. Post-war, the two were captured by rebels, they were saved by Buck, and Virgil was taken to a secret ONI moon facility where ONI kept all of the other Engineers to form this sort of engineer superbrain type thing, capable of solving the most complex problems instantly. They basically connect all of the Engineers together to form sort of one central intelligence, a little bit like a proto-Gravemind, I guess, but of course, without killing all of the Engineers. During the Created Uprising, some Promethean soldiers broke into the facility and kidnapped Sadie, and when Buck and Alpha 9 came to request Virgil's help, he absolutely refused until she was saved. Ultimately, of course, she was saved, and the two, along with Alpha 9, went on to save many innocent lives threatened by a Guardian and discover a planet-cloaking foreigner device that could turn the tide of the war. If you ask me, I'd say that the UNSC kind of wasted their money with the Spartan 4 program post-war. They should have just put all that money into like an engineer breeding program or something, because I mean, these guys are intelligent and useful and then some. Who needs armed super soldiers when instead you could just have thousands upon thousands of floaty boys using foreigner tech for you? It's really a no-brainer. And so, that is an overview of the Engineers, what I believe to be one of Halo's weirdest, most enigmatic species with one hell of a history. They've lived through the Foreigner Flood War, the firing of the Halos, the rise, the height, and the fall of the Covenant, and now work for various factions across the galaxy, and also suffer oppression from either the hands of the Banished or from big evil space dictator Cortana. That plotline still annoys me. All these guys want to do is just float about the galaxy and repair foreign attack. Why must the galaxy work at every point to stop them from achieving a nice, peaceful life after all they've been through? Just, oh god, give them a break. So that's all for today, fellas. I want to give a big thank you to my boy Glyph over on Patreon for becoming the latest iconic one, and of course to everyone else over there who supports me as well. And thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one.